The Anomaly, Tensura X Data Live, by Nocturne_Chapter 22. Darkness Descends, the Demon King. At the hospital where the other spirits except Rimuru were resting. Shido Pav. Shido. I'm hungry, Toka groaned, clutching her stomach. I'll get you something soon, don't worry, Shido said with a smile. Kagaya chimed in, dramatically pointing at Shido. Shido, you're not giving our kinswoman the forbidden fruit before us, are you? We are the true heirs to your generosity? Complaint. Shido is forgetting that he's our property first and foremost, Yuzuru added with a deadpan tone. Hey, me too, Miku exclaimed, practically bouncing on the spot. You're not thinking of leaving me out, are you? I'm starving? Shido sighed, feeling overwhelmed by their energy. Yeah. I'll grab you all something, so just hang tight for a bit. Do you two need anything? Shido asked, glancing over at Yoshino and Natsumi, who were fast asleep, snuggled together in the same bed. He smiled softly at the sight, about to grab Yoshino's phone when it started ringing beside her. It was Kotori calling. Yoshino's phone? Shido murmured, reaching for it. Just as he was about to climb onto the bed, Rimuru stopped him with a calm but firm hand on his shoulder. I'll get it, Rimuru said, walking past him effortlessly. But, Shido hesitated. Rimuru glanced back at him, a smirk on her lips. It'll be weird for a guy to just climb onto a bed with two girls sleeping anyway, right? Hearing that, Shido awkwardly rubbed the back of his head. Good point. Thanks. Rimuru carefully retrieved Yoshino's phone, managing not to disturb either of the sleeping girls, and handed it over to Shido. Here you go. Thanks, Rimuru, Shido said, taking the phone. Yoshino? Kotori's voice came through on the other end, though she quickly realized it was Shido. Shido? Is that you, Kotori? Yeah, it's me, Shido replied, his voice filled with concern. What's going on? After a tense pause, Kotori explained the situation. Fraxinus had been attacked by the Dem, led by Ellen, but fortunately, they had managed to fend off the assault and were safe for now. Shido sighed in relief, though his brow furrowed. I see. So Fraxinus was attacked. I'm glad you're all safe, at least. We've retreated to Ratatasker's underground base, Kotori continued. You should come here once your pickup arrives. Shido blinked in surprise. Wait, how do you know where we are? Whose phone do you think you're on? Kotori replied with a smirk in her voice. Shido immediately understood. Of course, Kotori could track Yoshino's phone. Oh, right. They should be there soon to pick you up. I'll fill you in on the rest when you arrive. Hold on, Kotori, Shido interrupted, his tone turning more serious. There's something else I need to tell you, Origami. After another long conversation, Shido explained what had transpired, how Origami had suddenly transformed into a spirit and engaged in a fierce battle with Rimuru and the other spirits. Though they had managed to subdue her, the others had sustained injuries from the encounter. Rimuru, of course, was unscathed. Rimuru stood quietly by the window, listening to the conversation between Shido and Kotori. She had pieced together most of what had happened while she was engaged in battle with Origami, but one thing still nagged at her mind. Why had Phantom turned Origami into a spirit in the first place? What could be gained from such a transformation? No point worrying about that right now, Rimuru thought, deciding to shelve the question for the time being. The moonlight caught her attention, bathing the landscape in a soft glow, but something strange began to unfold before her eyes. The moon, once white and serene, began turning black as if being consumed by an abyss. A rift-like portal opened in the sky, spreading darkness across the heavens. Shido, Rimuru called out, her voice tense as she continued staring out the window. Something's happening. Shido, still on the phone with Kotori, had noticed it too. He looked up, confusion settling across his features. Kotori, what's going on with the moon? Shido asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Before Kotori could respond, a cascade of purple lasers shot down from the sky, bombarding the hospital in rapid succession. The entire building shook violently, jolting Yoshino and Natsumi awake. Chaos erupted as the group tried to make sense of what was happening, but the lasers didn't stop, continuing to rain down with unrelenting force. Shido, what's happening out there? Toka yelled, panic edging her voice as she rushed over to him. Shidu, still holding the phone to his ear, desperately sought answers. Kotori, what's going on? A spirit attack, Kotori answered, her voice was urgent. But this power, it's too strong, and there was no warning. Shidu's heart raced. Kotori, what is this? It's not a normal spirit, Shidu. This reaction, it's an inverse, Kotori said, her voice rising in alarm. An inverse? Rimuru repeated, narrowing her eyes as she turned her gaze back to the window. Her sharp senses caught sight of the figure in the sky, clad in a dark astral dress, radiating immense power. She blinked in shock, recognizing the figure immediately. Origami? When did she turn into this? Rimuru thought. Her astral dress changed to a revealing dark blue morning dress, wearing a large veil over her head and jagged markings on her exposed torso and thighs. A voice echoed in Rimuru's mind as Seal, her ever-watchful companion, spoke. Report. Rimuru-sama, inverse spirits are the true forms of spirits. They are also referred to as demon kings. Rimuru's eyes widened slightly, taken aback by the revelation. Wait, the true form of a spirit? What do you mean by that, Seal? Seal continued her explanation, her voice calm and composed. False spirits, like yourself and the others, are merely manifestations, unable to tap into their full potential. The true inverse spirits exist in another dimension, dormant, to prevent them from taking full control of their false counterparts' minds and bodies. When a spirit is overwhelmed by prolonged exposure to negative emotions, fear, despair, they undergo an irreversible transformation. Rimuru's mind worked quickly, processing the information at an accelerated speed thanks to her thought acceleration skill. In the real world, not even a second had passed. Once a spirit succumbs to despair, they release a new kind of angel, a darker, twisted version of their original one, and their astral dress becomes stained in shadows. The individual, Tobichi Origami, must have endured enough despair to force such a transformation, Seal concluded. Rimuru clenched her fists, watching as the darkened form of Origami floated ominously in the sky. Another barrage of purple lasers slammed into the hospital, obliterating parts of the structure and forcing the group to leap into action. The other spirits, including Rimuru, instantly donned their limited astral dresses to shield themselves from the onslaught. Shidu, barely keeping his footing as the building quaked around him, shouted. We need to save everyone, help me out, guys. The group moved swiftly, but the endless barrage of lasers made it difficult to advance. Rimuru leapt forward, summoning her territory to shield the others from the falling energy beams. Where did this spirit even come from? Shidu asked, gritting his teeth as the realization dawned on him. He turned his gaze upwards, his heart nearly stopping when he saw the darkened figure. Origami, his voice cracked, filled with disbelief. What the hell happened to you, Origami? Shidu paused. Shidu replayed Kotori's words in his mind, her voice calm yet laced with a warning. Tobichi Origami's a spirit. Listen, Shido, prepare yourself emotionally. No matter who it is, a spirit is still a spirit. You'll have to capture Tobichi Origami. Her warning echoed as the weight of the situation sunk in. Snapped out of his thoughts by Toka's concerned voice, he saw the devastation around them as purple lasers continued to rain down from the sky. Shido, Toka called out. Her face was filled with worry but also a fierce determination. I don't know what happened to Origami, but if anyone can bring her back, it's you. You're the only one who can reach her. Shidu met her gaze, nodding with newfound resolve. Yeah, you're right. I'll save her. Kagaya smirked, her arms crossed confidently. Glad to see you're on board, Shido. If you started whining, I was ready to throw you into the sky myself. Pledge. Kagaya and I will guide you to Master Origami. Shido, please proceed with opening her eyes once more, Yuzuru added. With that, Kagaya and Yuzuru used their spirit powers to envelop Shidu and Toka in an aura that allowed them to float and fly at tremendous speed. The wind rushed past them as they ascended into the sky, closing the distance to the inverse spirit. Don't do anything reckless, got it? Rimuru called out, standing on the ground as her eyes followed Shidu's ascent. Darling, don't forget about me. I'll be sad if you do, Miku teased, her voice carrying a mix of seriousness and playfulness as she used her own spirit powers to strengthen them further. Just as they gained altitude, a barrage of purple lasers descended upon them, fast and unrelenting. Before the beams could strike, a massive wall of ice formed, blocking the assault. Shido glanced down and saw Yoshino, her angel, Zadkiel, towering behind her in its gigantic puppet form. Yoshino's face was resolute, though her voice wavered slightly. Let us handle things on the ground. With Zadkiel, I can hold her off. HMPH, all this debris is an eyesore. I'll turn it into something fluffy and harmless, Natsumi said. Natsumi, Yoshino, thank you, Shido called out, grateful for their support. Come on, Shido, I'll draw her fire. You move in when I've got her attention, Toka shouted as she surged forward, sword in hand. With one powerful sweep of her broadsword, she deflected another volley of lasers from Origami's cannons. Kagaya, Yuzuru, let's go, Shido urged, taking the opening Toka created. Leave it to me, Kagaya responded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Acknowledged. Commencing approach, Yuzuru added. But before they could continue their ascent, a familiar voice rang out from below. I think not, there will be no meddling with the inverse. Ellen Mathers appeared in the sky, her presence commanding and dangerous. With a single swipe of her sword, a brilliant yellow slash of energy soared toward them. Before anyone could react, Rimuru appeared, deflecting the strike with her katana. It's been a while, Destroyer, Ellen said, her tone carrying a hint of amusement. I figured you'd show up eventually. Here for revenge? Rimuru replied, her eyes narrowing as she readied herself for battle. Ellen's gaze flickered to Origami, a smile playing on her lips. That power. She's even more impressive than Princess was back then. What a magnificent inverse. Ike will be pleased. At her words, Shido's anger flared. Quote, screw you, we won't let you take Origami. Barking like some rabid dog won't change anything, Ellen sneered. Be silent and. Before Ellen could finish, Rimuru charged at her, their blades clashing in a violent storm of sparks. Rimuru had fought Ellen before and emerged victorious, though Ellen refused to accept that defeat. She was determined not to underestimate Rimuru this time. Trusting Rimuru to handle Ellen, Shido turned his focus back to Origami and flew toward her. Origami. It's me, Shido. Can you hear me? He shouted, hoping to break through to her. He reached out, gently cupping her chin, preparing himself for what he knew he had to do. His heart raced as he leaned in, ready to kiss her and seal her powers. But when he looked into her eyes, he froze. Her eyes were completely blank, devoid of life or emotion. Her skin was pale, her body cold and unresponsive. Quote, Origami, Shido whispered. As he faltered, losing control of his flight, he plummeted back toward the ground. The impact was hard, but before he could even register the pain, Kotori's angel, Kamiel, enveloped him, healing his injuries in an instant. Fully healed, Shido sprang back to his feet, determination etched into his face. I've got to get back to her, he yelled. But before he could act, a massive yellow beam of energy fired at Origami. Shido looked up in horror, expecting the worst, but the attack was deflected by a powerful barrier surrounding her. Fraxinus. Shido gasped, recognizing the energy is coming from Ratatosker and Kotori. Looks like you're going all out down there, huh? Kotori's voice came through his earpiece. Kotori, we're doing our best, but I don't think we can afford to retreat. We're sending you back up to Origami. Her words were cut off as Origami's cannons targeted the Fraxinus, explosions rocking the ship. Kotori. Shido shouted, panic rising. Kotori. Suddenly, Shido felt something pulling at him. Looking down, he realized his feet were caught in shadows. A voice he knew all too well echoed around him. Long time no see, Shido-san. Kurumi. Shido's eyes widened in shock and frustration. What are you doing here? Kurumi smiled serenely, her red and golden eyes gleaming. Era, have you forgotten? I told you, my goal hasn't changed. And what better opportunity than this? Kurumi, please, I don't have time for this. I have to save Origami. Shido pleaded, struggling to free himself from her shadowy grasp. Kurumi chuckled softly, almost pityingly. Ah, but that's impossible. No one's voice can reach Origami-san in her current state. Not even yours. What are you talking about? Shido asked. Kurumi raised her musket, her angel, Zafkiel, looming behind her. You'll understand soon enough, Shido-san. It's time to begin. With that, she fired her 12th bullet, Yod-Bet, at Shido. He braced himself for pain, but none came. Instead, his vision blurred, and the world around him seemed to melt away. Kurumi, what did you? Let's go on a little journey together, shall we? Kurumi said with a sly smile. Before he could react, everything around Shido shifted. The hospital, the chaos, the inverse origami, all of it vanished. He found himself somewhere entirely different. Somewhere 5 years in the past. Origami Pav. Several hours earlier, before everything descended into chaos. Zafkiel. Yod-Bet. Kurumi fired the 12th bullet, and as soon as it struck Origami, her body began to fade, vanishing as she was sent 5 years into the past. Origami awoke in darkness, which quickly morphed into the real world. She now found herself floating above Tengu City on August 3, 5 years ago. As she plummeted through the air, she quickly regained control, gently landing atop a steel beam at a construction site, scanning the city below. This is, 5 years ago. Origami muttered, clenching her fists. Metatron, Malik. She summoned her angel as beams of light formed cannons around her, allowing her to fly and search for one person. 5 years ago in Tengu City's Nanko area. Dad, Mom, she whispered, remembering the day that had haunted her for so long. Origami had returned for one reason, to exact vengeance on the spirit who had taken her parents' lives. After searching through the skies, she arrived in a familiar burning district, the place where her family once lived. Her eyes locked onto a glitching, fragmented figure. The spirit from that fateful day, Phantom. I found you. I finally found you. Origami seethed, her voice filled with venomous hatred. I found you. I found you. I found you. I found you. I finally found you. Without hesitation, she unleashed a barrage of attacks. Metatron. Her cannons fired relentlessly, the beams of light tearing through Phantom's mosaic-like form, but it was futile. The attacks passed through as if Phantom wasn't even there. Confused, Origami prepared to strike again when Phantom appeared before her. L0001, L11010-LL. Oh. Phantom's voices distorted, filled with glitching tones, making it impossible to pin down any clear identity. D. O stroke. 1. L-O. L-V. O. Who are you? Where did you come from? And why are you attacking me? Phantom's questions only ignited Origami's fury further. She clenched her teeth, launching herself forward with another attack. Her hand transformed into a blazing claw of light, aiming to tear Phantom apart. But Phantom dodged with ease, reappearing behind her. I see. You've reversed the flow of time with Zafkiel, haven't you? Phantom's observation made Origami's heart race with panic, but her anger remained unwavering. Kador. The cannons surrounding Origami unleashed another volley of deadly beams, but once again, Phantom effortlessly dodged, barely acknowledging the attacks. You won't escape, Origami shouted, chasing Phantom with reckless abandon. DQL, O stroke. Oh. Phantom's mocking tone pierced through Origami's rage. She increased the intensity of her attacks, but it was as if she was fighting against a ghost. O stroke. L. LUV1LL. A wish? Seriously? Origami scoffed. You killed my parents, and now you dare talk about wishes. Her rage surged to new heights. Screw you, I won't let you pray, I'll make sure you die without achieving anything, leaving nothing behind but regret. Origami's voice cracked with fury, but Phantom merely tilted their head. O stroke DDD O stroke O, O stroke. OV1 O stroke O? Origami froze, her entire body trembling. Phantom didn't know. Was this confusion real, or another sick game? Her emotions spiraled out of control. With a scream of despair, she powered up, surrounding Phantom in a massive yellow sphere. Her cannons formed above, charging for a devastating blast. As the beam fired, it obliterated everything in its path, but Phantom still managed to dodge at the last second, leaving Origami gasping for breath. 1 L. Phantom said with a twisted smile. Origami's heart sank. Her most powerful attack had failed. Phantom remained unscathed. Ood? L-O-L-L-1-O-1. L-L-V. odd. You're leaving? Origami stammered, her voice cracking as she realized Phantom was slipping away. Origami screamed, summoning her cannons once more, but Phantom waved casually, her fragmented body vanishing before Origami could land a final blow. Dad. Mom. Origami murmured as the tension drained from her body. Just then, the familiar wail of a spacequake alarm pierced the air. Glancing down, she saw her past self as a child, standing beside her parents. Except, they were already gone, reduced to nothing but ashes. Origami's world shattered as the realization hit her. She had caused her parents' deaths. That massive beam, the one meant for Phantom, had struck them instead. Her past self gazed up at her with tear-filled eyes, filled with anger and hatred. I'll never forgive you, her past self screamed. Someday. I'll kill you. Origami's breath caught in her throat. Despair flooded her as she vanished from the past, returning to the present. Now, in her inverse form, the light had left her eyes, and her heart was devoid of any emotion. End. Chapter 22.